All right, the game is up. We're coming back with more Deltobowl VI. Um, I've been informed to say to you, dear audience, that I tend to phrase this as a great rivalry. I cannot speak. I should really stop and re-record this video starting properly, but we don't do that here. What I've been informed to say is that these are two actually friends who are like supportive and like each other's play and are not, desperate to win at all costs. But that is a boring angle that we will not be going with. But in that direction, the first Rhinoa tournament was a team tournament. They decided to be on a team together. They have at least attempted to build hands together, though, according to my inside reports, it may not have gone great. Which makes sense. I've never tried to build a hand with anyone. Certainly seen ideas and seen synergies in other people's hands I've taken from, but never actually sort of built from the ground up with someone figuring out what I wanted to do with it. And that sounds like a process where it would be really easy to find results that didn't fit with what either player wanted out of the hand. Because there are lots of hands where there's clearly like, you have the center starter and you set up synergies in the corners. And there's often only one or two ways you're actually going to get those fits to work. And if you're both trying to do that, you will end up with the same hand construction. But it's not a very interesting process to have a second person on because you're just solving for which card pluses in both ways or whatever. So I think that would be a hard process. I've gotten off track here, but the other thing I wanted to talk about at the start of this video before the game starts is the last game was obviously a big controversy because Delial achieved a winning position and then misclicked to throw away the win when the move he had intended to play would have straightforwardly won. Not like it was winning, but it's early in the game and there could have been tricks. No, the game was over, good luck in the next round had already been said, that kind of thing. And so now we have a weird situation. And not to make this about me, but just to relate a story I'm familiar with because I was part of it. I remember, I think it was a clan league or clan wars or something. And I was playing Yojimbo. And I had a winning position with 4 moves left. And I missed the win. And he didn't see I had the win either. And I found it like immediately after playing. And it was just like, I felt so bad because I should never miss a win with 7 minutes on the clock and just 4 moves to go. I thought I had checked everything. I thought I had checked all lines. I had gone into pure calculation mode, and I just missed it. All right, the game's been taken, so you won't have to listen to me babble for that much longer. But I just completely missed it, and I felt so like that was my chance. It's gonna be so many games before I get another winning chance. What a nightmare! And I think I collapsed pretty shortly after that. I'm pretty sure, I'm quite confident I lost that match, and I think I lost it soon after. But the point I really remember was that moment of realizing there was a straightforward win here, and I just blew it. And I think it's can be really difficult to come back from that, especially if you're someone, who's really invested in Triple Triad and your Triple Triad play. And so Delial's in a spot which I think is just quite difficult mentally where he's basically has to beat Seto twice, right? If he loses once, he's out, and he has to win twice against possibly the best player of all time. That's not an easy task. That is a very difficult task. Alright, sounds like they'll be starting in a moment. They're definitely in card select. We've seen Seto switch hands between games, though we switched hands between hands that had a similar concept. They both had a side starter with a card that could take back both ways with a 9 facing out, and with all potential captures from next to the side starter covered by the hand. And the first hand started in 2, and the second hand started in 6. I thought the 6 starter intuitively seemed stronger because Delial's hand has been a bit more up down than side to side. But as the game played out, it actually looked like the starter in 2 which should lead to a more up-down game, ended up being the more effective starter. And I think in game 1, where Seto started in 2, he ended up getting a little pressure. I thought Delial played a nice reply, but Seto found not just a nice way to clarify it by forcing the next moves, but also to get some advantage, where with 4 moves left, it was Delial that had to calculate precisely to make sure he had the tie. And in game 2, he couldn't find that path to clarity after Delial's very similar reply to his starter, and ended up going for an offbeat move. So the starting move order was 6, 1, 4. And then Delial, I think, found a fantastic move in 3 and was winning, but the misclick stopped the conversion. As I said in the last video, I'm rooting for Delial. My perspective will generally be looking at Delial's moves, but Seto is a phenomenal player, and whoever is to move, I will be looking at, what they're trying to do. But that is my rooting interest, and I think, it's important to not pretend I am a neutral fan here. Also, the thing I wanted most was to have a match that went multiple games. I wanted this to not be over instantly, and I'm certainly getting that. Alright, so what do we got here? A couple things to note. They're both using 8982 and 1898, which I think are the most powerful cards on the rule set. I think those are just the 2 best cards. You could argue 8918 or 8891 are similar power, but no one has used either of those cards because they basically fit the same squares you'd want these, and the 8 surrounding the 9 seems a bit more powerful. I know Delial mentioned in planning that he thought 8982 and 8667 were a nice fit, because 8667 has potential to take 8982 3 different ways just on its own plus wall or overpowering potential, and that would be a nice combination. I was at first thinking Seto had used it with this 8766, but it's not quite the same. Delial has stuck with his hand from the prior games. I do think Delial tends to find a hand where he likes the synergies and will stick with it. He will consider switching, but, if you're kind of flipping a coin whether to stick or switch, his coin, I think, is weighted like 60% or 66% to stay. Seto has had, this is 2 days since the last match, so that's given Delial some potential time to recover, and Seto some potential time to maybe work out if he wants to do something different with his hand. Here, he is quite a different hand than the prior games. Does not look at all built to support a side starter to me, so I would expect a corner starter here. I don't think center starters are easy to support. I think fundamentally, I don't like center starters in random, in general. But in hand games, I think center starters can be really good, but are reliant on how much synergy you can create. And the more synergy you can create, the more center starters are viable and powerful. And I think it's not a coincidence that, like, Piggy's famous center starter hand was on level 5. And a bunch of the center starter hands I've seen that have worked well or created that have worked well have been on level 10. And I think specifically 5, 7, and 10 are the levels that offer the most center synergy. I'm sorry I haven't talked about the game like at all yet, but and on levels other than that, really got to be careful if you're going to have enough synergy. Those are levels where the cards really end up coming together nicely, and other levels it can be quite difficult for them to come together well, and thus it becomes harder to find center starters. So what I'm saying here is I think a 7 starter is quite unlikely. Seto has switched to using 7289, which was a card I used in my winning game on this set. I had a hand... Honestly, like, Aesla just outplayed me the first 2 games. And the second game, they really got a bunch of pressure. Just a general rule, I think. We were both using similar hands. We were both using 997s, which you can see neither player is using here. And I think a general rule is raw power helps more on second turn than first. Because my 997s felt kind of clunky, and his 997s were working just beautifully in every variation. And he set some really nice traps and played really well, I thought. I was very impressed. Game 3, I switched to 7-2-8-9 from a 7-3-9-8. And 7-2-8-9 is kind of similar to that 8-9-8-2, but facing the other way, and ended up playing a bunch better for me than the 7-3-9-8 had. So I think much like 8-9-8-2 is probably better than 8-8-9-1 kind of cards. I think having your 9 flanked by high numbers is a little more value for those cards with a 9 and some other numbers. Similarly, I think Delial's 7-5-6-9 is better than a 7-6-5-9 would be. I think you really want the powerful side well flanked. And I'm not quite sure how to verbalize into why that is the case, but I think there's a lot of evidence this round that those cards have played well. Another thing Acely used well, and you can see a similar card in Seto's hand here of the 9-7-2-8, is his 2-7-9-8 played really well, and a 2-9-8-7, where the 9 is not flanked by both high numbers, did not play nearly as well. So I think another thing we're seeing here is cards are being well chosen, right? It's not just picking good number combinations, it's picking the more powerful iterations of those good number combinations. I'm not sure this always holds true. I think a card like Squall or Cypher, like 6-9-A-4, is probably better than 4-9-A-6, and I'm really not sure how to verbalize the difference here. It's interesting. I'd love a poll of like which card types do you prefer? Like, do you prefer A964 or A946? Right? Which of those do you find plays better? There's a case for both. Anyhow, I think 8-7-6-6 is interesting synergy with a lot of downward 8s, of which there are 4 between the two hands. So that could end up being pretty powerful in a bunch of situations if the game kind of starts with the top row being filled. Now, one thing I haven't talked much about starter possibilities for Seto, but I think this is a hard set to start on. I think there are a lot of squares that kind of just aren't going to be covered that cleanly by your own hand. Now, 8-9-8-2 in 1 strikes as possible. Delial's only capture can be comboed back, and so that is a move that potentially puts pressure. But one problem is Deli could play 8-9-8-2 and 5, and that sets up 1-8-9-8 both ways, but 1-8-9-8 is also in Seto's hand, so he's fine if that happens. So that would be the move. Maybe a better reply then would be 7-5-6-9 and 5, setting up 7-6-8-6 both ways, because that is not a power that Seto also has. He does go for the 5 starter. Alright. This leads to a bunch of things. I may get distracted. Yeah. Deli notes Seto doesn't seem to have an obvious starter. Seto clearly agrees here. I think this is one of the reasons. I don't love how I played my round, but I think I did one thing well, which is I built a hand that had a starter plan. And I knew it's a type of hand. I played a 3-corner hand, which there are videos I've made about. But I knew I'm going to have a starter, and even if they have it well covered, it's still all right to do, and I can revert to that. And I used to get in trouble when I stopped pre-making hands and started just doing them in card select because I had too much faith in myself. I used to get in trouble with hands that didn't have starters, and I just wanted to make sure I wouldn't have that problem. Alright. A couple things to think about against a center starter. One is, can we play a corner that gives us more synergy than they have, or something they cannot take? Now, I think Seto did carefully check that he covers 9s in corners, right? So on 9-4-9-5, that card could have a 9 facing down or up from any of the 4 corners, but in all of them, it's covered, right? It wasn't initially covered if 9-4-9-5 went in 3. Seto's hand is used up the card that could capture from 6, but he now has 7-2-8-9 ready to capture there in 6. So I believe there is nowhere Delial can go that Seto does not have captures both ways. I believe that's the case. No, there is an exception. A 9 to the right from 7. So 8, 9, 8, 2, and 7. No, Seto does have the capture. 7, 2, 8, 9. Yeah. So I believe there's going to be no safe moves. So if we're, or no moves that are even half safe. So if we're looking for a corner play, I think what we're trying to do is create synergy that isn't shared. Seto's hand is right now quite balanced, right? If we think of 7, 2, 8, 9 as a good card for kind of 3 or maybe 6 pointing out, 8, 9, 8, 2 is a good card in 4, just of where its power faces. 9, 7, 2, 8 for 9, 1, 8, 9, 8 for 2. That's pretty balanced. It's going to be hard to exploit a directional weakness in this hand. And he kind of has one weak number in every direction. So that's going to be tricky to exploit as well. This is a very balanced hand where his 5th card was also a balanced directional card, and he uses up that and has strong power in every direction. If there was a directional weakness, or there was a side-to-side or up-down weakness, if there was a side-to-side weakness, I would really strongly consider playing in 2 or 8 if I was Deli, because I think that would force the game into an up-down nature, but Seto's hand is fine up-down. Similarly, we could go 4 or 6, but Seto's hand is fine side-to-side. So more likely, I think what we want to do is build things that are tricky for Seto to take and can be comboed back. So that leads me to thinking we're not using 9s, because any 9 we have obviously cannot be overpowered, but all of them Seto can combo, right? If you can't overpower a card but you can take it, it must be via combo. However, 8s might be a number that he cannot combo so well, and maybe that forces him into overpowering, and if he has to overpower, maybe there is combo back potential. So, can we face out secondary numbers like 8s in ways that are tricky? So for instance, 1, 8, 9, 8, and 2 or 8, or 8, 9, 8, 2, and 4 or 6. Do either of these moves make much sense? Now, 8, 9, 8, 2, and 4, I think we can quickly see some points. It can only be captured by Seto from 7 with 9, 7, 2, 8, and that can be comboed back with 7, 6, 8, 6. It can only be captured from 1 by 1, 8, 9, 8, and that can be captured back less comfortably and potentially susceptible to combos by 7, 5, 6, 9. So I don't love that, but that's a kind of move I'd start looking at here. I actually like Seto's starter. I think it does a really nice job of denying clear options. I'd probably end up on a side play here. But I don't see a clear plan. There's also stuff like playing 9, 4, 9, 5 in 4 or 6. If you think you're going to get more combo potential on their starter later, then sliding next to it can help you combo back. It also... Actually, in 6, Seto can't take it from 9. So you sort of threaten to play in 3 and lock it in. And you have ways to recapture it both ways. I should have seen that earlier. But maybe 9, 4, 9, 5, and 6 makes some sense. It does give up a lot of up-down power. Like, it is useful to have 9s up and down against Seto's hand, because there are only 2 things that can sort of fight that particularly well, though there is combo back potential. So that might give up too much power, but that's a move that makes some sense to me as well. I also think just playing the strong corners, like 1, 8, 9, 8, and 1. Sure, 9, 7, 2, 8 has the plus wall, right? But it's probably not taking it in the near future. And that card is dead in 2. And so if they have to hold on to it for 4 and they hold on to it too long, maybe you block 4 and it has to go in 2 and it's horrible in 2. Alright, so Deli does go for one of the ideas I talked about, and kind of the main idea I talked about, of going in one of the sides specifically with 8s up and down, because 8s are the number that are going to be tougher for Seto to deal with. And specifically, the two versions of that I thought were most appealing were 1898 and 2 and 8982 and 4. And the reason for that is specific. It's not so much that I'm excited to capture 5, it's that I don't want to be weak to 5. Because if my card, the card I'm playing, my opponent has low combo potential against, then I want that to be the card that starts the combo chain, right? Seto is more likely to have combo play against 5. It's his starter. He has a turn now to set up with it if he wants to. So I'd rather the start of the combo chain be something I know he can't combo, right? Seto has no plus walls against this card. He can only take by overpowering. And any capture he does by overpowering, both of them can be comboed back by 7-5-6-9. I previously only noticed that if Seto plays 9-7-2-8 and 7, Delial has 7-6-8-6 and 8. But actually 7-5-6-9 and 8, Dalton, I think, does the job as well. And that's really important, because that means Delial can just hold on to 7-5-6-9, and he has plays in both 1 and 7 covered. So what to do if we're Seto? There are two squares that most of the time you can just dismiss. 2 and 8 kind of give free squares, don't achieve much, right? The most common played moves are in 3 or 9. And generally speaking, when one plays in 3 or 9, say looking at 3, a really important factor is to have 1 and 2 covered. Because if the opponent can play safely in 1 or 2, it's just very unlikely you'll have any advantage. With 8982 still in their hand, they'd always have 2 covered. And with 7289 still in their hand, they'd always have 1 covered. And that's also true if you played in 9 and needed to cover 7 and 8. So my instinct would be, if you're going to use one of these cards, use 1898 or 9728. But that might not be the right instinct, because Delial has just said this game is going to be side to side, right? There are so many more interactions of empty squares on the board that are to the side of each other than are up down. Specifically, 1 relates to 2, 2 relates to 3, 7 relates to 8, 8 relates to 9, right? 4 versions of that. And up down, there's only 3 to 6 and 6 to 9. So there's just a lot more side to side interactions to come of cards that aren't yet placed. And so using up one of 9728 or 1898 could prove risky. The other thing is, it's often nice if playing one of those corners to have weak numbers out facing that are easy for you to capture later. First turn in general is helped by having things be easy to capture. Second turn wants things to be difficult, because in the capture game, which I've talked about far too much, first turn wins by force. But that's if first turn can capture at every point they want to. So second turn, to respond to that, needs to either make captures difficult or set up tricks with combos. So 9728, if you were going to play it in 1 of 3 or 9, if this was a closed game and you were just playing on general principles, you'd put it in 3, because it's easier to recapture from 6. But that leaves you with 1898 that, if the bottom row is the last row available, might be a dead card. And so it can be easier to play 9728 and 9, but that can also be a trickier card to take back and lock up more cards in your hand. There's also 6, but I also think 6 is a difficult square for Seto to play, because either, if he uses one of 8982 or 7289, he's using a dominant side-to-side sweeper, and those are going to be really powerful cards in the side-to-side game. But if he uses one of 1898 or 9728, he is using up a card that has more total side-to-side power, even if its specific capturing ability is lower. And also, on this part of the board, 1898 and 6 cannot be recaptured from 9. So you'd have to do it with 9728, and then notably, the 1898 has the recapture one way, but not the other. Maybe you don't need it at all, because 7289 has the captures both, but I'm just saying it can be messy. So what I was going to get to, and we've gotten to move, is this draws me to, I don't like those setups. I think they give Deli a lot of play. I think we kind of got to go center attack, and look for safety near where they started if we can get it. And that is where I had intended to go on this, and I think this is a nice move. I think this is a very nice move. Delhi has used a lot of rightward power, so it is difficult for him to, play in one safely. And Seto has started to build out his own safety. And, he started in 9. And now Delhi has to put something on the board that can be attacked, right? Because right now, Seto has that card in 7. Not 9. I said 9. I meant 7. Seto has this card in 7 that just can't be attacked. Now, Delhi can lock in a card in 4, but in doing so, he's going to put something on the board that Seto gets to play against. And this is kind of the argument for the center attack, is you're not necessarily taking a lead in score, but suddenly there are a bunch of the cards on the board that are your opponents, and all the ones on the board that are yours, you don't really have to worry about. We've already locked in 7. 7's just not going to be at risk. For it to be at risk, Delhi would have to set up against it in 9, and that's just going to give free time to block 8. So now Delhi has an interesting problem posed to him of how are you going to block 1? Because you likely are going to block 1. You don't have to. You do have the combo back in 2, but that can get really tenuous feeling, because when you combo back in 2 with 7, 5, 6, 9, that's susceptible to 8, 7, 6, 6, and it can be pretty messy if you're scared of combos. Now, it's not obvious Seto can ever set up much combos on the card in 5, so maybe that's all fine, but it can feel scary. And now Delhi has to put a card on the board, and it's a card that will be vulnerable. And Seto does not have to take big risks against a lot of moves, right? If Delhi plays, in 3 or in 6, Seto can play in the other of those squares, and he doesn't have to immediately grab 4. He can just set up, a Z, and suddenly Delhi will have to, at some point, lock in 4, because Seto will only take it when Delhi can't combo back Seto his last turn. I think this is a nice turnaround. I liked Delhi's move, and I like Seto's move, and now I think Delhi has to find something good. Because I think this is not an easy position. I think it is not an easy position. And Delhi's hand is not good side to side, right? This is something we know from last time. So there's a question. What happens if Delhi plays in 1 and Seto captures from 2? I think it depends on what card, of course. But if 7, 2, 8, 9 is the card used to capture, then Delhi can follow up by playing in 3, capturing that with a 9 down, and that will be safe, and that's probably good enough to at least tie. The only card that, however, forces Seto to use the 7, 2, 8, 9 is 1, 8, 9, 8, and 1, and then the 7, 2, 8, 9 combos it, and that makes it not an acceptable option. Other options give Seto more freedom to use other cards. Now, the 1, 8, 9, 8 is potentially scary for Seto to use as a capture card in 2, but not that scary, because 7, 5, 6, 9 has the combo, but 9, 7 in 3, but 9, 7, 2, 8, and 6 combos back, and that's winning. So it is difficult for Delhi to block 1 here. It is difficult. Again, Seto doesn't have a threat in 1 yet himself. But anywhere else Delhi goes on the board is giving Seto something to play against. I'm drawn to 9, 4, 9, 5, and 6, but I don't think it's any good. It just is not a card very relevant to the up-down nature of the game. I think this is a tough position. This is a tough position. So if I was playing, I would not have spent so much time looking at random ideas. I would pick a move in 1 and brute force it out. So I'd say, okay, 7, 6, 8, 6, and 1. I'm trying that card because it hasn't seemed relevant to me in many of the lines I've looked at. Oh dear. Well, someone's being annoying and lighting fireworks across the street from Delhi. It's not even 9 p.m. Calm down. Alright, but hopefully he's not distracted. 7, 6, 8, 6, and 1. Seto captures 1, 8, 9, 8, and 2. Now Seto will double capture and lead 6, 4. Delhi can't combo that, but he can maybe play 9 there. Because if Seto goes 8, he can pick between 3 or 6, depending on what Seto has left. If Seto has kept 9, 7, 2, 8, then Delhi can't go in 3. But if Seto has used it, then Delhi can go in 3 with 7, 5, 6, 9. So there might be a decent line there. This is unpleasant though. This was a very good move by Seto, who has had first turn in every game. In my match, I also got first turn in every game. Really not sure how I feel about the turn advantage. I really don't like defending positions like this. It's like just out of comfortable calculation range, or where I can see a linear line to the end clearly, and everything looks unpleasant, so it's easy to look at a move and go, I don't like it, and move on, and you just gotta check more thoroughly. Alright. Big move from Delhi, because this is the kind of move that either works or doesn't, right? It sets up a same in 8. I think that's a big enough threat that we should assume Seto will respond to it. I assume Seto will block 8. Let's say with 9, 7, 2, 8. That seems the obvious way to do so. The obvious move for Delhi is, say, 7, 5, 6, 9, and 6. Delhi's up 6, 4, but Seto now has his choice of how to attack. Now, he can't attack with 7, 2, 8, 9, and 3. That gets comboed by 1, 8, 9, 8. If he attacks with 1, 8, 9, 8, and 3, Delhi can block 2, and 7, 2, 8, 9 is no captures. So 3 ties. If Seto goes in 2 with 7, 2, 8, 9, he's still behind 6, 4. Delhi can play 1. Not 3, because in 3, Seto has the combo in 1, but he can play 1. Seto takes one thing from 3, that's a tie. If Seto goes 1, 8, 9, 8, and 2, Delhi can play 3, that's a stupid move, it loses. And finally, what about 1? So the line here I'm looking at, if I didn't make it clear, is 9, 7, 2, 8, and 8, 7, 5, 6, 9, and 6. And after that, if Seto goes in 3, I believe it is a tie. If Seto goes in 2, I believe Delhi has at least a tie. So I'm down to what if Seto goes in 1. If 7, 2, 8, 9, and 1, Delhi can play 7, 6, 8, 6, and 2 and tie. And if 1, 8, 9, 8, and 1, Delhi can block 3 and tie. So this is very clever from Delhi. Doesn't mean it works, but I believe against 9, 7, 2, 8, and 8, Delhi has a tie in 6. A very creative tie. You can see that this position really was a lot of pressure. Great argument for the center attack, where the real concept is not so much like, I get a safe card, but I get a safe card and you have to start putting things on the board that I can pressure. And if Delhi has to find a move like this to survive, this is really nice pressure from Seto here. Is it any different if Seto puts a different card in 8? Maybe. 7, 2, 8, 9, did not play well in those lines. It didn't find squares. So what if Seto keeps uses 7, 2, 8, 9 and keeps 9, 7, 2, 8 for that endgame? So plays 7, 2, 8, 9 in 8. He's picked up 9, 7, 2, 8. Which might mean there's not much of a difference. I don't think he can be intending 3 or a square like that, because that just concedes 8. I think you kind of have to block 8. It's really hard to find a move elsewhere. So I think he's intending to play 9, 7, 2, 8, and 8. Alright. Deli has said, and there's the loss, god damn it. But I don't think this is a loss. I think this is a tie. I may have miscalculated. I often do. But I think Deli survives here. Unless it's a different move than 8. So the game order of this one was 87665, 89824, 89827, 94959. Seto has not yet played. I believe that 9728 and 8 is met by 7569 and 6. This is my thesis. I may be wrong. But we're now a little closer to it. So 7569 and 6. Deli leads 6-4. If Seto plays, we'll go through it again. 7289 and 3. Deli combos, and he doesn't lose. We're just making sure he doesn't lose. I'm not differentiating between lines where Seto ties or Seto loses. I'm just making sure Deli doesn't lose. If 1898 and 3, Seto blocks 2 with anything, doesn't lose. If Seto plays 7289 and 2, Deli goes 1, doesn't lose. If Seto goes... We do have plus 1 on, right? Yeah, okay. If Seto goes 1898 and 2, Deli goes 3, doesn't lose. If Seto goes 7289 and 1, Deli goes 3 and doesn't lose, because he will be up 6-4 there. And if Seto goes 1898 and 1, Deli goes 3 and doesn't lose. So I don't think this is a loss. I should probably not reply to his message saying, and there's the loss. Because if I said something like, I don't think this is a loss, that obviously influences. So I'm going to stay quiet on that front. Now, there's also 1898 and 6. That also puts him up 6-4. Let's calculate that out. Why not? If Seto goes 7289 and 3, we still have a combo on that with 7569, but the combo is bad now. So 1898 and 6 is going to lose to 7289 and 3. Yeah, because your combo gets comboed back. It's really important to hold on to 1898, and 7569, I think, has to be the card. Also conceivable there's a way to tie in 1, but it seems very unlikely to me. Because no card in 1 is going to be safe to 2, and so if Seto goes in 6, and you go in 3, you can only capture one thing, and he will capture at least one thing back, because he'll capture 1, and so you have to play in 2 to block in 1, and you'll tie the game there, but he'll capture whatever you put in 2. So I do not think there can be a tie in 1. Yeah, there can't be a tie in 1. And 1898 and 6 doesn't work, but 7569 and 6, I really think ties. And I am tempted to check with the solver to make sure. That would take some typing. There's also the question of, is there anything in 3? And the answer is just no. There's not going to be something in 3. Why not? Because you're down 6-4. They occupy 6. You play 2, you will at most gain 1 card from where you currently are, and as long as they have 1898 left, that's going to capture something and you're going to lose 6-4. So unless you can make it so they can't play 7, 2, 8, 9, and 6 there, you're going to lose on that, and I don't think you can do that. Deli has picked up 7, 5, 6, 9. Yes, I think this is the tie. He's put it back down. What's the problem? I hope we're double checking. Because I think this is a tie. It's easy to count badly. No, he's picked up another card. Oh, I'm really nervous. Really nervous. Put it back down, Deli. Put it back down. Oh, I am curious. So, to minimize my tension, I am going to type in the cards so I can bring up the solver. Deli's hand was... I can't look. I am quite nervous. Oh no. It's played 1, 8, 9, 8, and 6. So I think this loses straightforwardly. Man, that sucks. Because he earned a win. Alright, let's check. Deli's second move put good pressure. Seto's third move survived and put good pressure. Deli's move in 9 was a brilliant survive. And he had one tie, and it was 7, 5, 6, 9 to 6. Yeah, that's really rough. And didn't find it in the end. I wonder where he miscalculated here. I wonder where he missed that 7, 5, 6, 9 works and this doesn't. But the critical point here is in the other version, Deli would have 1, 8, 9, 8 to go in 2 in the game position. And now he doesn't. It's so hard to come back when and 7, 5, 6, 9, and 2 just doesn't do it. It's so hard to come back when you feel you've won and it's over, and then you have to, you know, climb the hill all over again. I'm sad. I don't feel good about this. Found a really nice tie in 9, and then didn't convert it. Hard position to save. Found the only save in 9. There were a few other ways, but they were not obvious. For instance, after Seto's move in 7, only one move and one tied. It's hard to find. Oh. Yuck. Well, big congrats to Seto, who is now in the finals. The 3 finalists are now set. There's no misclicks left here. The 3 finalists are going to be myself, Seto, and Metis. And we'll see how it goes. Great run by Deli to make the semifinals, and the idea of having to beat Seto twice to be champion does seem impossible. Really good run by Metis, knocking out a number of excellent players, especially... I'm forgetting one of his opponents, but Slash of Time, Tezuka, and DJ, and one other. It was a really, really tough run. And yeah, should be a good finals. Wow, this is heartbreaking though. Because Deli had the win and it disappeared through no fault of his playing ability. In this game, he found a really nice tie and must have just blanked on 7, 5, 6, 9, and 6 on the difference here. The thing about Triple Triad is you get really invested and you care a lot, and then it's, you know, like all competitions, it's brutal. I think they should have to play another game. They've each won once. We demand more basketball. I'll stay on it till the game ends. But this is sad. Yeah. Goes for the fun route. And how many cards will be flipped? 2 will be flipped. 4 will be flipped. 5 will be flipped. Just enough for the 6-4. First turn has played well so far in this event. Metis won on second turn. The other games were decided on first turn. Yeah. What to say? I think this was, all the makings of a great match, and it's kind of a shame it went down this way. Which is not to denigrate either of them, but obviously we've never had a misclick situation like this that I know of. And yeah. Sometimes you just blank calculating, where just for some reason, yeah. And he says he had it set up for Dalton in 6, and then just fireworks happened and the brain went elsewhere and couldn't come back to getting it to work. And I did sort of think that's what had happened, because once you start checking Dalton in 6, it works. But if you decide it doesn't work, right? If you at some point give up on it, it's really hard to return to. It's really difficult once you've decided a move doesn't work to come back and try it again. And especially when there's not much left in the game. And so that's just how calculation errors like this, I think, happen. Or there are 2 ways they happen. One is you're thinking about a move and you decide it doesn't work, and you haven't quite checked it carefully enough, and then you don't come back to it even if you have the time to. And the other way is the other way it can go wrong there is if you've decided the position is hopeless. And I think that he did say there's the loss, but I think he I don't think this was a not spending the whole time because you think there's no chance of a tie here. I think this was something where wrote off the move at some point in his thinking and never came back to it because he had time left, and Delhi is a phenomenal calculator, even if it's somehow not even his best ability. I do want to say, I think this is something Seto does better than anyone in my experience, is with 4 or 5 moves left, which for very strong players is in calculation range, but you're going to make some mistakes in occasionally, really just doesn't. That he's just not going to... He's not going to lose a game quite like this, right? He's going to lose a game like we saw in game 2 of this match, where Delhi plays fantastic second move of the game, and puts Seto under a lot of pressure, and then Delhi still has to find a fantastic 4th move to be winning. And he finds both, and that gives him a winning position. And on move 5, there's nothing Seto can do except cause Delhi's computer to mess up. But here, on the other side, and actually, maybe this doesn't really happen to Delhi either, because of players with a decent sample, he is the only person I have on record until this game to have never made a mistake move 6 onward. And I've done it. I did it against Delhi. He put a lot of pressure on me. I couldn't find the line. Some of the watchers could. I was, there were other people who did. Delhi knew my tie. Akiyama knew my tie, but I didn't find my tie. But Deli and I were the last two of the people I had a lot of games of who hadn't messed up and either lost or thrown away a win move 6 or later. And this sucks as the first and only time in the return, and Deli's played, 100 open games, that I've seen him blow a move 6 position. So, it's, really tough matchup. So hard to come back from having a win taken away. On the other hand, I think Seto played really well here. I thought Deli's move in 4 was very good, and Seto found a fantastic reply in 7, very much like the first game, where I thought Deli had applied pressure on move 2, and after move 3 it was suddenly, Deli has to be really careful here. Seto has the pressure, Seto is gonna have the pressure. And for a second time, against a reasonable reply, Seto has very much turned around my expectations of the position. And I think that's really impressive and strong. I think in move in 8 was really good. According to the solver, there wasn't a win. Deli played a great move in 9, but he found a way to apply maximal pressure and did a fantastic job here. And congrats to Seto. And I think I'll call it a video so I can go commiserate with Deli. Cheers.